Welcome to our video number 4 on future health technology. The objective of this video is to actually bring together what you've learned so far on frontier technology before and apply it to the biopharmaceutical industry. Understand how those technology will impact digital health, biotechnology, genetics, gene editing, and many other type of health technology over the next 10 years and more. A lot of those technology actually have immediate potential. So don't only think they are future technology, like in a sci-fi movie, and they're only going to come in 30 or 50 years from now. A large number of them are ready now. Some other need a bit more work, but they'll soon be ready. Let's start with bioprinting. Remember our video on 3D printing? The concept can be applied to human body. What about we can actually print bones, cartilage, skin, muscles, organs, vessels, teeth, body parts? You think it's fiction? It's actually reality. And that's what you can see on the right side of the slide. First 3D printed skin. You can see on the right a non-functioning printed kidney, and there's a great TED video about this, and I advise you to have a look at it. Recently, Israeli team actually printed small-scale, non-functioning or semi-functioning heart and a semi-functioning lung that was actually implanted on a rodent, and the rodent survived a few hours, indicating that the actual bioprinted organ, it could be partially functioning. We're making a lot of progress. Imagine that when you have a dysfunctioning body part, it could be replaced. Currently it could be replaced with other cells, but soon with the progress of genetics and the progress of many of the other fields like molecular biology and lab science, we'll be able to actually use your own cells in order to produce your next generation body part and then reimplant them on you. 3D printed prosthetics is the next slide. One application is bioprinting, but another application is actually to produce non-living body parts. So what about hands, legs, feet, joints, bones, teeth? And that looks crazy to you, but I'm sure a number of you already went to the dentist and have a non-biological implant in your mouth. Probably some of you knew a family member with a knee or a hip implant. It's already bionic, and we are already bionic to some extent. Now the progress in 3D printing prosthetics is big, and we're now making huge progress towards new generation and next generation of prosthetics. Health robotics. We talk about robotics as one of the subset of AI. Health robotics has tremendous applications. You think about imaging, our ability to understand and image the human body is now making tremendous progress through next generation medical imaging, and also medical robots which are able to position themselves at the right angle, optimizing the imaging, and then when the imaging is optimum, we can then of course optimize the diagnosis attached to it. Think about robo surgery. We have robots which are now able to perform surgery much better than human. Is it surprising to you? No, the robot is never tired, is never shaking, is never distracted or sad. It just performs and also learns systematically for a large number of surgery. The best surgeon maybe perform in their lifetime a few thousand surgery, and that's for the very best ones. What about this robot has already performed the equivalent of millions of surgery through those virtual surgery being loaded into a system and actually applying machine learning and enhancing its ability to optimize the surgery. I would probably bet my life in the hands of a robot more than a surgeon in the future. And I was talking to a surgeon in a hospital recently that was telling me that it is not unlikely that in the future, and he's already seeing these trends, surgeon will perform less and less surgery and robot will take over more and more surgery, leading to an interesting trend where if you do less surgery as a surgeon, you have less expertise because you do less training, right? And if you do that, then you're becoming less and less good. Hence, the robot are incrementally better than human at performing surgery. To a point where this doctor was mentioning to me and say, hey, I was thinking maybe in 10, 20 years from now, it would be a risky endeavor for me as a surgeon to perform a surgery as opposed to a robot, and maybe it would not be even medically insured, or my premium, as a medical practitioner will actually increase drastically because I'm taking a risk for the patient not having enough training compared to a robot. Think about the drastic implication, and some of them are already present. If you think about Da Vinci robot is already performing successfully a large number of surgery, and we expect the scope and opportunity of that to expand. Robo dispenser. The problem we have currently is the dispensing of drug is happening, and that's a great opportunity. It's well secured, with our partner in the pharmacy, the pharmacist. But what about we could actually make it personalized? we can personalize the drug exactly to what we need. And we see already the evolution and the progress made in the field of personalized medicines and healthcare. What about you would come out of a diagnostic and then go into this dispensing machine that you can see on the top right, and that would actually dispense the machine as per prescription. Better, could actually produce the drug on demand exactly to your need, and then based on the QR code you get it delivered and then you go home, or a drone can deliver it to your doorstep. Robo Diagnostics. I used to be traveling, and I always remember recently going to Dubai, and the doctor says, I've got a couple of patients, but this nurse is going to take care of you. And I'm like looking around, I can't see any nurse, until I realized that at this mini robo nurse coming in, I would taking my blood pressure and a number of vitals, and then sending it directly to the doctor. And the doctor would sit when I arrive, and everything would be displayed automatically on his screen. And then based on that, he would ask me a number of questions, and the algorithm would actually identify 2 potential diagnostics for what I have. Which is very interesting, right? Remember, on the spectrum of AI, this would be AI doctor assisted, so very close to full autonomy. And then based on that, and on the formulary inclusion, on the negotiations, and etc., the hospital had a given drug that was optimum for my specific situation, and based on their specific healthcare ecosystem. And they would actually recommend that drug. And then the doctor gave me a little paper with a QR code and said, follow the yellow line. And I just walked down, follow the yellow line until I end up at the pharmacy from the hospital that actually delivered the drug. Now, the whole thing could be automated even further. When you look at Robo Dispenser, Robo Diagnostics. Now, Robo Nurse is the next one. Think about a nurse. We're missing a lot of healthcare professionals across the world. We have a drastically increasing population. Think about Asia Pacific, about Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, but also about increasing need, but also think about Western world, for example, North America and Europe, with an aging population and less healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, to be able to help us. We have to think about automating solutions which will enhance the quality of care. Number one, in its availability, but also in its quality. This is where digital health and robotic will help a lot. And then Robo Fitness and mental health is just one I like a lot, this little robot here, which is actually performing already activities in Japan and a few other countries, is helping senior people in nursing home to actually do their daily fitness. Is also talking to them and engaging in very simple talk, small talk that we know have a positive impact, for example, on reducing the incidence of Alzheimer. So there's a lot of opportunity in terms of offering care, especially to elderly, but also to a number of remote patients that do not have the accessibility of healthcare. Think about healthcare drones. We talked about drones. You're like, oh my God, what are the applications? There are many applications. That's why it's a general purpose technology. Think about telemedicine. What you can see is a drone medics. This drone medics is able to perform simple diagnostics and perform telemedicine as a relay. Is being sent to a geographically remote area in Africa or in Asia, and then is able to perform some basic tasks. Think about lab medical samples or supply. So Zipline, that you can see, is a startup company operating from a few years in Africa using drone. And if you remember the different categories of drone, that's the fixed wing one, the big ones, which are fueled. They are propelled in the air, and then they're actually dropping little parachutes with either medical supply, or in this case, they can actually collect blood sample in a remote area and send it within a matter of minutes or hours to a lab to perform tests, when it used to take days for somebody to actually move to a remote destination, take the blood samples, come back. Very expensive for people in those remote areas. Many opportunity there. Think about patients and HCP transportation. Now drones can be equipped with cabins, and in case of emergency, you can have a HCP hopping in a drone and going to a remote location, offering huge potential to actually deliver healthcare to many remote parts of the world. But not only necessarily in emerging markets. Think about, for example, in Europe or in America, where we have area which are non-urban area, very remote, and where there's no doctor for maybe hundreds of miles. That could be a great opportunity. Or the other way around, send a patient that needs it directly to a healthcare system and bypassing the infrastructure. Think about disaster relief. Our partners at UNICEF or the World Health Organization are performing great work, as well as some of the other NGOs in the ecosystem. They're already leveraging the opportunity offered by drone to actually help in the case of disaster relief, to bring solutions and medical options to the one that really needs it in urgent situation. What about search and rescue when we are missing people, and the ability to map out and, for example, using thermal cameras and other solution in remote area and identify where somebody maybe has a broken leg in the middle of the jungle. And that happened recently in Hawaii, where somebody was actually logged for, I think, a week or 2 weeks and barely survived, and we couldn't spot the person for a long period of time in those remote areas. And maybe last but not least is health emergency. Think about defibrillators, which are, when your watch is telling you you're having a heart attack, automatically triggers the defibrillator to come to you via drone, as opposed to somebody running around trying to find it in a different floor or in a different building. You may be dead by then, when the drone may actually deliver it to your doorstep, or you've been bitten by a snake and is bringing an anti-venom to you. Those will change the way we operate as a healthcare industry. Medical AI and blockchain, that's the digital part as well. So imaging and analysis. You remember we talked about convolutional neural network, and a large number of those deep network solutions are now becoming better than human at identifying images. What about I'm actually feeding this algorithm with, let's say, PET scan, MRI, and many of the other digital imaging solutions we have? They actually have been tested and against radiologists, and in a number of tests, the AI algorithm in the context in the field of radiology was actually outperforming radiologists by 5, 10, 15% in its ability to actually detect cancer or certain pathology like fracture or cardiovascular disease. So a huge opportunity in health image analysis around artificial intelligence. Diagnostic and prescription. I mentioned the example in Dubai. Now think that soon, with the limitation in healthcare professional availability, and also the fact that those algorithms are progressing very fast, the ability to actually diagnose a disease and make the right prescription attached to it, the best one based on all available information. It is harder and harder as a healthcare professional to be able to stay up to date with all the healthcare information available. You have to read and plow through hundreds, if not thousands, of medical literature every week. You have to get up to speed on practice. You have so much to do. It's barely possible for human brain to keep up with the pace of health evolution. Machine can do that very well. You can feed them all the different articles, all the different clinical trials, all the real world evidence, and they are probably more likely, once we have stabilized those algorithms and make sure they are safe and secure for patients, giving them the ability to actually make a better prescription and a better diagnostic attached to it. So that's really a revolution. Not only we're talking about an existing diagnostic and an appropriate prescription, we're talking about the ability to actually prognose a survival. So if this patient is leaving the hospital now, is being discharged, or is leaving my practice or whatever, what is his potential prognosis in 1 day, in 1 month, in 1 year? AI, remember, some of the, for example, supervised learning environment and other type of solution are very good at making prognostics, making forecasting. We can apply that to health and actually forecast. If we discharge a patient with this given characteristic, he or she is more likely to have a relapse or to have a stroke or this type of issue, or let's say a fracture. Very important that we can leverage this in order to go back and modify the continuum of care, so that we know that when we discharge them, they have a higher likelihood to survive and have a better quality of life in terms of prognostic. Clinical trial AI. As an industry, we're really doing our best in terms of clinical trial. And that's a hard endeavor. It's a very risky endeavor. We invest a lot of money and funds to make sure that we can research the best solution and bring them to patients as fast as possible. But despite all our effort, it takes a long time to do that. It's a highly regulated environment. We want to make sure we deliver those drugs and we design them in a safe way. What about leveraging the opportunity that AI is offering us to optimize clinical trial inclusion, patient segmentation in the clinical trial, so we can really find the best drugs and the best biotechnology or medical device solution for the patient that really needs it. This is the evolution of personalized healthcare. We can go further and even evolve towards a world, or in a world where we'll actually have virtual clinical trials, where those clinical trials may not even be needed to be performed in animals or even in humans. So it's going to enhance welfare of animals, it's going to enhance welfare of humans, and that's what the industry now is starting to look at, is how actually we can go beyond the regulatory framework we operate into, that in many instances ask us to perform those tests, to actually be able to digitalize the clinical trial. We can now already use algorithms that can reproduce quite well a tumor functioning, or a metastatic spread of a tumor. We can already have genetic information, we have molecular biology information, we have a large number of pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic information. What about we pull this all together and combine this in an algorithm that will allow us to understand what kind of drugs will fit with which kind of mechanism in which kind of body. And this we can do actually and run it with high advanced computational power in a matter of weeks, potentially even days. So imagine how fast we could bring new drugs which are more suited to patients with even less side effects and bring it as fast as we can to those patients that really need it. Virtual patient assistant. When the patient comes back home, he or she is alone, many instances, in their home, and they need some support, daily support. There can be simple advice on the food and dietary requirements, but it can be also, what about adherence? Don't forget to take your drug. If you do, you may suffer a fracture, or you may have a relapse, or you may have a heart attack, or potentially some issue with diabetes. And so it's important that you take your drug on a regular basis, and will remind us. Potentially identify when we fell on the floor, and then call a Uber, and the Uber is picking us up and delivering us to the airport, to the hospital, very fast. So this could actually change the way we operate with the emergence of digital virtual assistants. And then last but not least is blockchain. That could be a fantastic technology to help us secure data, think about clinical trial, but also ensure that we do and evolve the way we do privacy with the complexity associated with consents. Informed consents, but also we can go further down the line where everything is done transparently, it's properly being displayed, and you can have two layers of blockchain, a public layer and a private layer. You can choose which information could be displayed publicly and transparently. For example, de-anonymized information could be genetic information or disease or others, but then the names or the personal identifiers or the sensitive health information could be stored on the private layer of the blockchain, or on a side chain, for example, allowing us to actually have the right balance and dichotomy between the need for transparency, safety and cybersecurity of the data, but on the other hand also ensuring that we can protect the privacy of patients. And that's going to be a drastic evolution. Think now about electronic medical records. We can leverage blockchain to secure those electronic medical records and actually maximize the potential use from a digital health perspective, so that the industry and the biopharmaceutical industry can access those de-anonymized data, real-world evidence, and actually maximize their output. Medical extended reality. We talked about extended reality before. And you think about virtual reality and augmented reality. Well, how can I use that in healthcare? There are plenty of applications, and a lot of them already real. Think about virtual reality for rehabilitation. Helping people, show them the direction of the movement because they had a broken arm, or they had a very complex neurologic disease, and they don't really know where and how. You can guide them, through leveraging virtual reality, immersive environment, or augmented reality. Pain management. It's been demonstrated that if you keep the patient busy, it can reduce between 20, 30, or 40%, even in some cases, the perception of pain, because the brain is focused somewhere else. It's not going to eliminate the pain, but it's going to actually help reduce drastically the pain without using any drugs, which is a revolution as well in terms of pain management. What about surgical training? Remember, surgeons, they have to train a lot. And it's hard because you don't want to train on real patients. So what about you use augmented reality and virtual reality immersive medical environment where you can perform as many surgery as you can, and as soon as the incision or the operation is not actually to the exact standard, it stops, you have to start again. So you're going to perform thousands of surgery as opposed to maybe one real surgery in one day. You'll perform thousands or hundreds of surgery within a few days. So your learning ability is going to drastically increase and improve. What about virtual reality for drug discovery? Some of the molecules, small molecule, but also large biological molecule are very complex. They're like protein, they can be very complex. The ability to manipulate them, to visualize them, and make sure, how they operate, we understand better how they operate. This is where virtual reality can play a role. Augmented reality for surgical assistance. Now it's the real surgery we're performing, but over the real body of the patient actually is overlay all the data. For example, the imaging, the health imaging data, as well as all the vitals are immediately overlaid and giving me the target where I need to make the incision. And so it's really a fabulous opportunity in terms of assistance. Augmented reality for injection, and that's the one you can see here. For site detection is a real one, which is using near-infrared technology that you actually project the technology over the area that you need to make an injection, and which show you the veins which are more likely to be utilized, the bigger ones, where you can make an injection. So you reduce the pain or multiple injection site issues, and you're trying to, you also maximize welfare for patients. What about augmented reality for patient care? Currently we're using, watches and smartwatches and mobile phone. What about you just turn and then all, here is displaying on your arm, all your vitals and everything which is linked to your health for the day. Now range from dietary requirement to sport all the way to the care or taking drugs or going to the hospitals and giving you information on your vitals so you can really manage. It's the quantified self, medical version of it. And then finally, what about augmented reality and virtual reality for medical education? Pushing here, it takes a lot of effort and energy to help as a biopharmaceutical industry help foster medical education so the healthcare professionals can have the best medical education possible, understand challenge around diagnosis, disease, and potential drugs associated with it. What about we actually find new ways to educate the the member of the healthcare community, leveraging those advanced technology, so they don't have to travel. They can still take care of patient and maximize that while at the same time enhancing their medical capabilities. We talked about Internet of Things. Remember those sensors and actuators which are everywhere around you? In the medical fields, their application is broad. So I'll start with a funny one, smart toilets. But think about it, you go to your bathroom probably multiple times a day, and there are a number of things that can be detected earlier in the process in some of the output. Urine, for example, we can identify blood, we can identify level of sugar, we can identify potential markers for cancer, prostate cancer, and others. So we can actually, early in the process, have toilets that actually perform biological tests real time and are actually informing us about our health or indicating that we may need to consult a doctor before it's too late. Think about your smart toothbrush. I'm sure a lot of you are using those electronic toothbrush. Now those toothbrush with AI augmentation are able to tell us, hey, you've not brushed enough this part of the mouth, or we're detecting a tooth decay in this part, depending on this kind of enzyme production, indicating you may need to consult a dentist or you want to brush this part and work on your dental hygiene. What about smart clothes? That can detect within, for example, perspiration, that can detect some elements that could be indicative of like toxin, for example, another element that can be indicating of a challenge, or that can tell us about our heart rate and tell us to be careful. Same for smartwatch. Smart pills, which is the ability to embed robotics, AI, and other type of technology in a small pill with sensors that we're going to absorb, help us managing adherence, help us managing things that we could never manage, having access inside the body of the patients and offering many, many solutions. Smart tattoos, which are on a constant basis monitoring a large number of vitals. Smart implantables, where you can have pacemakers, you can have insulin pumps, you can have a large number of implantables that can now be managed and optimized, where we can, through Bluetooth and other, near connection technology, connect them through the broader internet with the right cybersecurity and augment with AI so we can maximize the, distribution of those drugs and optimize the utilization of the implantable. Another example in the common bathroom for every day is a smart mirror. Where, depending on your face, remember, face recognition will identify that, hold on, or talking to you, or face recognition, identify that, hey, you have a certain level of stress, or you feel tired today, or etc., and will actually make some recommendation depending on what the algorithm is seeing. So in a nutshell, now you combine all those technology along the patient journey from daily activity all the way to, some form of disease symptom, going to the hospital, diagnosis, being dispensed and prescribed a drug, discharged, going back home, and all the following care, whether that's in an urban area or in a very remote area with little access and care. Those technology can drastically change the way we provide our provision of healthcare solutions. And as an industry, it is a tremendous time to be part of this healthcare continuum, because we can really make a drastic change. And those technology will change drastically how we operate as an organization, as an industry, and hopefully we'll be able to bring better solutions to patients. If you're interested in learning more about those technologies and their application, please check out my other videos on the topic. Thank you very much.